And bring the boys back in.
Wasn't sure.
No, go ahead. Good morning, everybody.
Didn't get the invite back up yet, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah, no, sorry, I was making notes. Go ahead, Tony.
So we got the BIA National Bear Team in here to do a presentation for you guys on Elmo on what their finding was and their recommendations and what our draft plan will look like going forward here. You know, we say draft, I say draft, just like Boulder. You know, the more we get into there, the more we can evaluate, the more we might need to amend, but this is a very good start with a very good team showing us what the impacts of the fire are, where the priority for restoration is going to be, and the funding allocations that we could go after. So, TJ, if you want to bring your team up here as needed. Okay.
Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, members of council.
Good morning and welcome.
I'm TJ Clifford, national team leader with the Department of Interior. And let's go around. While I'm setting up the PowerPoint, why don't we go around and introduce the team members that are still in the room if we could.
Good morning. My name is Juliette Jean. I'm the BIA Deputy Bear Coordinator. That's my day job. And I'm just helping out TJ as Deputy Team Lead on this assignment.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Michelle Berry. My day job, I work with the U.S. Forest Service. On this DOI Bear team, I help with environmental compliance and overall coordination of the document itself.
Ches Gwex Chanupin, Casey Ryan, Louis Quest, hydrologist with the CSKT.
Hi, I'm Maren Watkins. My day job, I work for the Bureau of Land Management and Range, and I am the vegetation specialist for the team.
Good morning, Scott Shepard, hydrologist with the Department of Interior's Bear team. For my day job, I'm coming from Central Oregon, working for the Bureau of Land Management.
Okay, just to make sure, can everybody see the presentation on the screen here?
Yeah. Monitors. I think we have our remote control back there.
Well, again, thank you for the opportunity. We've had an integrated team here. And I just wanted to say, give a special thanks to the Salish Kootenai tribes, the Northwest region and the Flathead Agency. Without that integration with these individuals on the locally that kind of came and joined us on our team for the field work and the assessment, no way we could get the job done. So super helpful to get that integration and introducing some of the newer ones here locally to our national team process, helping build a program that you guys can support independently, I think is huge. Goes a long ways, essentially to work us out of a job. I think that's okay. I think you guys already have a super good program. Very impressed with the individuals that joined us. And so our interagency bear team with that integration included myself, team leader, deputy team leader. It included biologists, cultural specialists, foresters, hydros, GIS specialists, documentations, and environmental compliance. So we've kind of got the whole gamut of folks to make sure that we get a plan that is well written, but also put something together for you guys that's feasible. As you guys probably already know, the total fire was about 22,000 acres. Trust lands, though, that burn within that are about 19,000 acres. We understand that it is human caused. For our assessment, that doesn't really influence what we do, what we look at, or what we prescribe, but just of note. What we do is work on 2 programs within this. So we follow up suppression repair, and the programs that we work on are emergency stabilization and burned area rehab. So emergency stabilization, which I'll probably call ES, and burned area rehab, which I'll probably call BAR from here on, are 2 coordinated programs. What we do is put a system of treatments together. The ES part is get those treatments done within 1 year because there is an immediate risk, post-fire risk, and those treatments are necessary to mitigate that post-fire risk. The second one, BAR, is kind of to immediately follow up, and that's the system to get you guys closer to recovery quicker. And BAR is a 5-year program. So as Tony kind of introduced, yes, we come in here, rapid assessment, we go and get the assessment done as quickly as possible. However, we are never entirely right. So what you've got here is a good start on a plan, but there is likely going to be changes, and that is built within the policy, and that policy supports amendments to this plan. So when we got here as a team, we had a list of values that all of those values go through a risk assessment. And as we go through that, we kind of look at what is the probability that something is going to occur. How likely is it that this post-fire situation reduces in something that threatens the values that you guys, the locals, brought up to us, which are listed below here. But then after we've looked at that probability, we also look at consequence. And in this case, we tried to evaluate treatments for anything that was of consequence or a risk of medium, high, or extreme. And so, like I said, every one of those values comes through that hopper for us to decide and focus our efforts on the right things and get treatments identified that mitigate those threats. So with watershed, the bear team members basically took a look at the fire more at the soil level and figure out what the erosion risk is. And what they came up with here is the hazard warning signs, storm inspection and response, and road repair. And those are all ES. soil burn severity completely relies on that satellite image that we get up front. It is very effective to assessing, especially in forested lands, what's going on with the system and what kind of watershed response we might have. And that loss of effective ground cover is one of the most important things when we're looking at that soil burn severity, because that tells us where or how bad, where the flooding might occur or how bad the soils have been impacted, which would affect like recovery, vegetation recovery. So on this fire, we have about 2/3 of it, which this, I have to say this, in looking at this fire, initially my pause here, but the gut feeling here is 2/3 of this fire is at a low or unburned state. We have a mosaic, and that mosaic does include 1/3 that was burned in that moderate soil burn severity, very little burned in the high burn severity. And so when you take a look at that across the board, that alone, that mosaic pattern really reduces our risk, reduces our concern for the watershed response, as well as the vegetation recovery. And so when we look at this, one of the big things is to install the hazard warning signs, as you guys know in the past, just to make sure the community members kind of know, hey, we're entering a burn. Stay heads up when you're entering that burn. Watch out for those precip events that are coming so that you have a safe gathering inside or within the burn as you're driving through. It's just these warning signs are a reminder that there's a situation here that's different. Storm patrol is just to make sure that infrastructure is protected. It's to make sure that after the precip event, if something is blocked, that we take a look at that you have a couple individuals drive up there and find those sections of roads that need repair and get equipment mobilized to repair them before you got visitors coming in there to keep the inside the burn safe. And then road, I'm going to call it road repair because this is an emergency situation as well. And rehab makes it sound like it's a bar. You had a number of locations within the fire that the roots actually burned underneath the road surface. And while initially it may not be a problem, the more time goes by, more weight goes over those sections, they will fail. So the plan includes fixing those sections so we don't have that. So we prevent that problem. Range infrastructure, a lot of range infrastructure in there. Essentially that road, that section of fence bordering Highway 28, there's about 9 miles of range fencing along that did sustain damage. And so we've got an emergency, an ES treatment here for that replacement and repair. We also have bar treatment for replacement and repair. So both the short term and the short term would be kind of to make sure that boundary fence is improved and you don't have livestock interaction with travelers along the highway. And then the long term to make sure that when you turn livestock back into the area, they're staying distributed like the original plan, the original design. I will note that in terms of range water improvements, they were inspected for damage, but none of those observed or were damaged. They were intact. So there is actually a no cost specification in here that kind of gets the outline of what we would do if we found some range improvements that needed repair. And it's a placeholder for that amendment that we had mentioned. So you can go forward with an amendment and just put the funding or the number of range improvements that were in there. So Forestry was also evaluated, and basically they spent about 3 days in recon. Ravage was used, which is a product based on soil burn severity that tells you what the tree mortality is, and GIS, and they kind of observed what amounts to about 8,300 acres of burned forest. And again, the same mosaic pattern. The mosaic, especially in the hog heaven and meadow Dayton management areas. Historically, a burn wouldn't be that big a deal. And what foresters actually noticed is that that hog heaven, the recent treatments in there really kind of dampened the mortality and the mortality rate in there. So it was a very good, that treatment actually really helped and minimized those fire effects. So the recommendations for forestry are, we'll have the bar treatments. And as you can see, there is a so there are 8,300 acres burned, 1,200 acres to be treated. And really good, they're using severity, slope, commercial designation, kind of to define, hey, this is where we really need to be treating. Again, amendment is possible, but I think they did an awesome job. And that was a local, Sean and others doing that work. And they did exactly what the policy would call for to reduce and figure out where those acres are that need to be reforested. Vegetation and weeds. Obviously, you guys know that the native plants are very important to protect. And so putting in a treatment in here to make sure that they do get protected is important. And one of those things, we had a discussion on multiple days about the Spalding's catchfly and some of the other T&E species or sensitive species within the area, including wildlife habitat. And so these treatments that we're putting together, the weeds, the fence, all that are going to support those natives and that vegetation reestablishment. Obviously, it was a mosaic burn. There are some areas that will still need to have that weed treatment to make sure that it's recovering in a way that supports turn back of livestock into the area, supports that natural recovery. But we liked what we saw in terms of natural recovery is really expected in this burn. The mosaic pattern, you've got a couple places where the team does not expect that to be very fast, but for the most part, that 2/3 of it is going to be a solid recovery. So again, here we're recommending noxious weed monitoring and treatment, which you guys have probably seen many times before. We are also recommending reducing or eliminating that livestock grazing turnback, because for the most part, the livestock rest is one of the most important things, or the making the primary objective natural recovery is the most important thing after a fire. And so cultural resources also super strong in this. We had two. We had Katie and Katie on our team and Katie McDonald from locally look at these sites. And I think essentially the issues as listed here, they were exposed to and vulnerable to damage adjacent to the road. We took a look at how we might mitigate that. Also gathering areas such as, near the teepees. This photo is of the teepees, but we have one in here that actually supports some of that gathering. And so some of those cultural sites were looked at. However, we did find that flooding risk, flooding or erosion risk to cultural resources was not expected to be a threat on this fire or from this fire. So, although no erosion or flood threats were identified, the sites adjacent to the roads are exposed. That's going to make them more vulnerable to looting and other damage. So we do have a treatment to work through that. And that would be mostly get the revegetation done in there for hiding cover as quickly as possible. And then a replacement of the teepee structure is also proposed. So this team also has environmental compliance. We try to do that as we go. So any, as you guys know, any federally funded action proposed on trust lands must comply with NEPA. All the proposed treatment specifications are covered under NEPA. Category exclusions, environmental assessments, environmental impact statements. The management plans listed here. What that means is that BIA has already concluded that these activities are routine and they do not have a significant impact on the environment. That's part of our process. So that's built into, as we go through our assessment, we're looking at that compliance and making sure that we're meeting those laws. So we talked about wildlife quite a bit. This is the list of species of concern determined through conversations as well as the IPAC report. Effects and determinations and consultations must be completed for bear treatments. I want to mention here though too that there are indirect benefits to listed species habitat from bear treatments. So I'm being redundant here on purpose. And that is, we're working on reforestation. We have fences proposed. We have the weed treatments reports. Those are all to respond to that native recovery and support listed species like this. That's a big part of policy. And so just kind of finishing up here, the last few slides are mostly about the cost and the treatments. We have 10 ES treatments that goes from a project administrator locally, supporting that administration and clean reporting. And then as I went through all the treatments, you see them listed here and the amounts. So this is our ES. So these are the treatments that should be applied within 1 year. And these are our bar treatments. And I'll note a couple things here. You see the reforestation, the stocking survey, and the CFI plot restoration. That is to make sure that you can continue commercial timber harvest in that area, and we keep track of it properly. And then another note here, the zero cost of range infrastructure repair, that is built when or if you find those improvements that were damaged by the fire. So it's ready to populate and send in for an amendment. It's also gone through the environmental compliance. And then you guys know some of the official details here is the approvals and concurrences on this one are going to go all the way up to BIA fire director because of the price tag. And when we get approval, the signatures, those ES and bar the ES treatments would be authorized. Again, just to reiterate, the ES treatments 1 year and 21 days from the start of the fire, and the bar treatments is 5 years and 21 days after that fire start. You can do amendments. Everything that we do, if it's a new treatment, it would need that NEPA compliance as well. But anything within this list, including that zero treatment, would already be covered with our efforts. Action items at this point, essentially to approve the plan. We're going to submit the plan tomorrow up the line for signature. So in theory, that would mean in 6 days you have the approval or the signature to proceed. And as you guys well know, every year establishing those funding mechanisms is key, and you can start that as early as possible so that you're ready to receive the funding when it gets here. And again, I just want to reiterate, it was awesome to work with the locals. That we can't do this job without them. And in this case, we were able to integrate, so they're in the field with us on multiple days and in the room assessing. And that is the only way to make this thing successful. Because at that point, we not only have a feasible plan that works for you guys, but you have knowledge and ownership in what we actually pulled together. So I really hope we did a good job. I do want to, that last bullet there, I sincerely state that again as we continue this support. So please reach out directly if you have any questions or need for assistance. With that, any questions, and we have an active map if we need to go through and get specific on some of the questions.
Well, thank you, TJ. Nice report. Len, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the council, and thank you for the report. I guess the question I have would be for Tony. Tony, it's always been insinuated that these types of plans would be utilizing our Indian preference office on these projects. It is spelled out anywhere specifically in these plans that we will be utilizing our tribal member contractors throughout the whole entire project.
So throughout this, it doesn't specifically state it. No, sorry, I had to answer that first question. But in the past, what we have done is the road repair stuff. We could look at the storm patrol stuff. We could look at as using our private contractors, Indian contractors. The reforestation part of it, we'll put that out bid for our Indian preference contractors to bid on to be able to do that. The fence repair lands will take care of the weed lands will take care of, and they'll see fit if they can do that in-house or contract that out. If they need to contract that out, they'll do that. But this plan here is just a part of the puzzle of what's going to go on with this fire after now. So, this looks at ES, which is emergency stabilization, and I hate to say it, but almost guaranteed funding for that type of treatments. The bar is still, we put in a request for that, and it still goes through a national process of evaluation and allocations based on money and needs throughout the region, the nation, really. So the other part of this is what will happen even sooner, which will be the rehab of the fire lines, any suppression damage that happened. That will be covered under suppression costs of the fire, which we can utilize tribal contractors for that also. And then also what he didn't mention and what's not included on this in environmental compliance part of it, especially, is the salvage portion of it, which will go in and look at doing the salvage of the overstory trees, and then follow up with the reforestation part of it that hopefully we get funded through the bear on it. And that obviously would be put out for Indian preference bid, just like any normal timber sale. So there'll be plenty of opportunities for local resources to be involved.
All right. Tony, just one question on the reforestation. To me, when I put on my climate change hat and look at fire resilient forest, I'm not necessarily looking at larch, I'm looking at ponderosa pines. So what is that? What is that ratio you're looking at or for replanting?
I'll have to talk to Sheena Shaw. She did the evaluation for it, but within that area and within that landscape, it's going to be mainly pine. We'll probably use western larch where we can on north aspects within that bowl of meadows where applicable, where we find wetter sites. We'll throw in a large mix there also, but it's going to probably off the top of my head be 80-20.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from council?
Yeah, I have
ahead, Len.
one. If you guys can schedule time with the Kootenai Elders Committee and do a presentation with them also on this.
We actually got to be in with them in about 45 minutes.
All right, great. Thank you.
Well, thank you, TJ. Ron?
Yeah, I'd just like to express my appreciation to TJ and his team. I mean, that's a comprehensive evaluation of that site. Came in immediately and provided that information for us and built a product to push forward for funding. And they do it every year. TJ, it's the second time I had the opportunity to work with you, and his team is awesome. So I really appreciate the effort. And then from our group, Casey Ryan and Katie and Sean and Sheena Shaw, everyone that plugged in, Mark, we have a good operation, good organization here, and it really shows in these times of crisis. So yeah, it's just, couldn't be happier. And then we'll sort out the funding thing and see how we're going to get things accomplished. I'm sure there's going to be other discussions coming up on tribal vendor use and things of that nature. And, but yeah, this is great. Going forward, I really appreciate the work, TJ, them.
Thank you. On the funding for the 5-year, the bear stuff, is that first come, first serve? I mean, you're waiting until the entire fire season is over before they assess the allocation.
Yeah, so they've, you know, in the past, it used to be kind of a first come, first serve, and they've revamped that process, actually quite a while ago now. To where they kind of wait until end of the fire season or majority of the fire season is over. They'll evaluate each plan, look at, you know, the needs of each area, the severity of each area, and then assess money and allocate money that way. We've been pretty fortunate, especially when we bring in this bear team and our resources, like Ron said, we have people that's done this for years now, a few years now, and know the right language, right task that could be funded. And I feel pretty confident that we'll have a good chance of getting this fully funded. We have been in the past working with the bear of any leftover monies of being able to allocate that here on our lands for any projects that didn't get funded in the past and been successful at applying that money. So I think we got a pretty good track record with them. And I think especially bringing in TJ and his folks and making such a good plan that we have a very good chance of getting this funded.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Tony and TJ, the rest of the team. And that's kind of what, you know, you guys are thanking everyone else, but I really want to thank you guys. You know, the Elmo community, Dayton community, you guys did some tremendous work. So make sure that is reflected down to, you know, all the people. One of my buddies is kind of on the front line of that, and they, you know, he's telling me how crazy it was that afternoon. So thank you for protecting the structures and the people, especially. You know, it's amazing to come out of a fire like that, and make sure you guys take care of yourselves. You know, take care of your guys' mental health. You know, it's important. So take the time you guys need to. I know we're in the middle of it, but you know, CT, Art, Daryl, all you guys, you know, frontline guys, make sure that's extended down to pretty much everyone. So thank you guys.
Indeed, thank you for the professional team, support, everybody that's here. TJ, go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and Council, I do want to say a couple things that we actually built this team with the deputy national coordinator on it. So Juliet is coming here as coordinator. So when Tony's talking about competing, and I'm looking at the Sheena Shaws and Sean, their reforestation, that's the big part of our, it's super solid. So that competition, you're already in. We have kind of the first reviews already happened just with this team. So I wanted to reiterate that. And then I do want to say one more time that, you know, coming in here with Ron and Tony, I was here in 2017 for Liberty and Blue Bay, and you guys are almost #1 in terms of they are doing such a good job and they're reporting out, as well as the way they put together treatments. You guys have the group right here, you know, within the reservation. And I love that part. That's exactly how we should all be. So I do want to just reiterate that in talking to the coordinators, you've got the #1 group right here. So I really appreciate that. I'm really glad to have the opportunity to work with the group and help get any of the newer folks on board into our process so you guys can implement even better in the future. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, TJ, for that compliment. We're very proud of our staff also. I think they do their due diligence, they're professional and very capable. So we want to push them to the limits. So, you know, want to be a ride on compliments like that. We don't want to bring them down tomorrow and so they have to work harder. No, no, they're wonderful. Our fire crew, our forestry, all our resource professionals are super. And I like Tony referencing the buzzwords, correct language, being able to find money as an art and be able to be successful and have a #1 team is hard work, very hard work for people. So appreciate that, TJ, and your team also. With that, any other comments? Guess not. Good
Okay,
to go.
thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, TJ.
Thank you.
You want us to stay here?
Yeah, if you would, we'll entertain Wade.
All right, so we did get some lightning popped in. We ended up picking up 10 new lightning fires. The largest was Clear Creek, was 12 acres. Everything else is either out or in patrol. So everything's lined, staffed, and in good shape. We did have 2 human caused fires as well. One that was at the shooting range. And one that was in Jetty the other day, yesterday. A guy was burning knapweed or cheatgrass around his residence about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Yeah, just a little way south of a 22,000 acre fire.
Is he
Didn't
like
realize that wasn't a good idea.
Is that an
so-
out-of-stater or what?
I don't know, but we hit him up and we addressed some issues with him, but it was a strong response. You know, the rural fire departments and us converged heavily onto his piece of ground. So I'm pretty sure he understands that was a bad idea. And we did have 1 injury though, sustained smoke jumper jumping into an area called Murphy Peak. It'd be south and east of Arlee there. And he broke his arm. His name is Shiloh McQuarrie. We reached out to him. He had surgery the night of his injury. The medevac went well. We got him off that hill and took him to the hospital with our light helicopter. Got him to next level medical care within 2 hours. Felt good about that. But so our thoughts and prayers go out to him. Outside of that, it's been pretty injury free. So, you know, that kind of reset us just on risk, talking about that as a group. And yeah, right now the staff's in good spirits and we're moving forward. You know, we've got a lot of things on the plate. The Elmo fire is coming back to us Thursday. So right now it's underneath the Type 3 organization. A kid by the name of Ian Morgan from Arizona is running that organization. We're with the state of Montana. Greg Ponson is the Type 1 IC, is running operations. And I'm sure Rod Couture is supporting them with some logistics. And going forward, we'll keep it in a Type 4 for a while, just to let you know that fire is going to have smoke on it until snow flies. So we'll definitely have a presence there. The Red Horn fire, we've got phase 1, which was building that area underneath in case it does come downhill to burn out from. That is complete. We've demobbed the Lolo National Forest Type 2IA crew, the BLM Type 2IA crew, and Great Northern. So now we're right back to just our staff, the fuels crew, and an AD crew from local that will be here assigned to that fire, ready to burn out if it needs. But the aviation's been really effective. And if you looked at the, you know, we map that fire daily, and the progression map shows that since we started hitting it with aviation, it's been amazingly effective and it's held it kind of in check. So we're in a good spot there. So we demobbed a lot of the equipment that was that implemented that phase 1, and we held on to some that will be participating in the burnout if we need, and we feel like we're in a good spot.
Ron, on the is the McDonald Lake closure going to be lifted then?
That's a discussion we need to have. A lot of pressure I'm getting from folks on that one, and
I bet.
and we'll have to talk about that. I mean, just looking at the fire behavior, and now that we pulled a lot of that equipment out, there's a chance, you know, that we look at some type of, but I'm not going to commit to it quite yet. But yeah, a
Okay.
lot of pressure, and that's definitely on our radar.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, would there be an opportunity if we do open that to use it as day use only?
Well, absolutely. You can post
Okay.
it however you want.
That would be part of our conversation and avenues. So thank
Yeah,
you.
we want to make sure you guys are feeling good about it. You know, Art feels good about it. You know, I mean, we don't want to get people trapped up in that box canyon if there's some event does happen.
Yeah, that's good. That's all I've got. CT?
All right. Thanks, Ron.
Yep.
You guys keep up the good work. All right, Wade, come on up.
I'm just here to express my concerns over the Indian preference on the fire there. There was a lot of us that have Indian preference. There's 32 type 6 engines on the Viper list in Missoula, and 15 of them are Indian preference. And there were a lot of engines from that Viper list that were called before any of the Indian preference engines were. And I called into fire control and talked to Jack, told him I had 2 type 6s 15 minutes after the fire started. And I never wasn't called until 5 days later. And we're all, we're all on the same team here, and we should all be working together. And I think that, we should have mutual aid agreement or something like that with Division of Fire before any of the local fire departments. They are structure protection and all that, the fire departments. We are wildland firefighters, so we have more experience in wildland firefighting. So I believe that we should be called first before any of the local fire departments and things like that. And I'm just here, to voice my opinion about the Indian preference. And what I'm trying to do is, I've got 6 tribal members on my engines and everything, and I've got a lot of young kids. And I'm just trying to give a lot of these younger kids, and I think we should have, 2 or 3 hotshot crews here on the reservation, IA crews, give all these young tribal members and stuff something to get up to and look forward to every morning. Instead of doing drugs or drinking or whatever, have a purpose in life, have a job to go to and do. And I think it's, more like the tree plant and all that. I think we need to all work together. We're all on the same team. We're put on the bench, and then they call in everybody else and let them do work and everything. Then after a while, then okay, well, you guys can come work.
Go ahead, Len.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Wade and Franny, the people that you guys all employ, are they required to take the PAC test and go through all the training?
Yes.
What about the volunteers? Are they required to do a PAC test?
The volunteers meet their own standard, I would say. So the way the volunteers are, they're a cooperator, and they have responsibility to respond to, Elmo and wherever, Jetty yesterday.
Yeah.
And so when you look at the scheme, there's agency, which is us, cooperators, which is the Lolo National Forest, or in this case, the rural fire departments. There's EERA, Viper agreements, contractors, which is the 3rd tier. And then the last is just incident only EERA, which is the 4th tier. And that's how the dispatching goes down. So when we got a fire at Highway 28, mile marker 39, Chief Cliff gets paged immediately. And Chief Cliff and the Lake County Fire Association have responsibility to be there, so they're going to be there. Under the mutual aid agreement that we have with Lake County, if they go over 4 hours on scene, then they can roll back in and we can pay them for that effort, which is great because it allows them to pay their individuals, build their equipment up, which eventually helps support the entire reservation as a whole with medical services and structure protection and things of that nature. So that's where that rolls in. So initial attack ran for about 48 hours. We had just enough folks to manage what we had. I think the fire rolled about 7 miles in the first 3 or 4 hours, and a lot of stuff going on. And we were handling with what we had. Then the team comes in, we transition with the team, and they start placing orders. And the ordering system in the dispatch, anyone's been in fire, it doesn't happen like that. It goes from here to there. And the initial orders came in, and to his point is, so the team took the request. I requested them Friday night, that night at 11. I hit them up and let them know that they're coming. Their logistics got a hold of me, and I went back to the fire to try to help. Logistics got a hold of me and was placing an order. And I don't know, I had 1,500 calls that night, and I didn't recognize this one, so I didn't answer, but he tried, he reached out. Missoula Dispatch knows that we have tribal preference. I don't know if they know how to apply it. And that became evident initially. So I came into the office, I think it was on Sunday, and I saw an engine that I didn't recognize. And I knew we had an issue then. So I killed the orders into Missoula Dispatch. And we killed. And I talked with Franny. Franny and I met with logistics at the team and kind of sorted through how this all played out. So now we killed the orders. So that backed up again a little bit of time there. And then we resent the orders. And we made a deal with the team. So the team has to submit to tier 3, which is Missoula. We told Missoula, send all your orders into Devon Claremont. Devon will utilize the priority lists and tell you who you need to call. And we alleviated all that issue. So the first 3 pieces of resources that came in, there was a tender and like 2 type 6s. They didn't meet what we wanted. And so with the demob, I told the team, those will be the first resources demobbed. And we will retain the travel preference vendor. Once Redhorn started showing smoke and started looking like it was going to be an issue, I told the team to identify who they're demobbing, and we grabbed people right off that fire, which was Wade's engine, and pulled them right into the Redhorn. And we just started working with that team, moving resources seamlessly across from one fire to the next to keep, you know, the staffing up and keep travel vendors employed. So that's how that played out. There are some things that we need to iron out with Missoula Dispatch, and I think we learned some stuff. I mean, they knew we had tribal preference. I don't think they knew how to apply it. And that became evident really quickly. And I think we addressed that.
So Ron, I guess the other question I have is not really understanding how the fire world works these days and everything like that. But is there any reason why we cannot have some type of mutual aid agreement with our tribal member contractors?
Because they're not an agency, they're a contract. So your mutual aid agreements are with cooperating agencies. So for this example, Chief Cliff and us share that protection. So that's a mutual aid agreement on how we're going to operate with that protection. And we identify how that's going to work. And it's, so we were in a mutual aid agreement with Missoula Rural Fire Departments, the Flathead County Rural Fire Departments. It's all based on counties, Sanders County and Lake County, because they have jurisdiction in the same areas. We have joint jurisdiction, joint responsibility. That's how that works. These guys are contractors that sign up as individual contractors with Missoula Dispatch. They don't have jurisdiction. They don't get dispatched. And that's the key, is the people that are getting dispatched to this fire through Lake County are getting dispatched through Lake County Fire Dispatch. I hope that makes, so like, let's say we get a fire at Perma. You know, there's a chance we're going to run into the Lolo National Forest, the state of Montana. You know, our Doug Brown is going to send something. Dixon Rural is going to send something, and so is Hot Springs. And the only thing we're dispatching is our folks. But under mutual aid, that's how it works, and we'll all converge on that fire because we all have some level of responsibility.
Okay. So, Ron, I guess to fix or the Missoula Dispatch. So, so our goal would be to carry on as if it was just your fire. And you're just going to bring in extra resources if it was just our fire and only our fire. So bringing in our own tribal contractors, how can we carry that recipe forward into when the team takes over, sort of the confusion that you're talking about is prevented in the future, so that we know that, you know, at best we can try to get our contractors out there, our tribal member contractors out there from day one. How can we give that information out, or how can we follow that recipe so that that's more evident?
I think we will now because we had an after action review with Missoula Dispatch. And when we transitioned from John Thompson's team to Ian Morgan's team, Missoula Dispatch was there, yeah, a part of that transition. And we talked about how the process needs to work. The individual is Beth Lemire. I mean, we know her really well. And she now understands exactly what we mean by tribal preference, and any of those orders have to come to Devon.
Is that something then you've written down for a protocol to give them?
Yeah, we can do that. Official protocol, certainly, I can do that. Yeah.
It will be something we discussed in our delegation of authority when we sit down with it in briefing of a team. That's something we will have outlined and discussed within that document from now on.
Okay.
So it's something that we've never come across. It never been an issue, but this time was an issue. So it's one of those things, hey, let's add that onto the template.
You
Let's add
orally
that.
tell them in that
Yep.
debriefing, but you also have paperwork that
Yep,
puts the recipe down.
exactly.
Okay.
And I
cool.
think like Ron said, the AAR with Missoula Dispatch, and then the continuing conversation after the fire season, to show them how it applies, Indian preference applies. And then next year, make sure we give them that list again, because that list changes every year as long as new contractors that apply for Indian preference, some that don't re-up. We got to make sure we continue our conversation with them next year on that updated list.
Okay, Fran, go ahead.
I want to commend, they did get, in my opinion, after our little discussion, we definitely saw input of tribal resources on the fire. So I want to tell Ron publicly, thank you, and Tony. And they're starting to do what is right, in my opinion. It's already been hashed out. It's in writing. 24 hours is the initial attack time that Viper has said you can use fire departments. That makes sense, kind of. Although some of us, like myself, have an engine sitting in the yard ready to go, just like the fire truck. So in some instances, a contractor could get to the fire quicker or as timely as a fire department. But the biggest point is, are we under Viper agreement? And term contract is used very lightly. We don't have a contract with Viper, we have an agreement. And the wording is a big catch there, because with an agreement, you don't have much recourse as a contractor. And so what I'm trying to bring out here is, sometimes you hear them saying, we can't do this, we can't do that because of the best value contract or agreement. But as you guys are well aware, the same agreement says you'll be paid within 30 days after you're demobbed. I myself last year waited 130 some days. Can I sue whoever is keeping my money? No, because I'm a tribal member and the fire was on the reservation. And so what I hope you can see is the tribe has the power to basically do, in my opinion, things differently and not go back to the Viper agreement when they don't adhere to the Viper agreement on the pay, obviously. And there's my son sitting here, he didn't get paid for longer than me. And that's in the Viper agreement. So why are we adhering to Rule 1 in the Viper agreement, but not Rule 2? So what are we? Do we have a Viper agreement or do we not? And if we do, then those local fire departments need to go away after 24 hours unless they're needed. That's common sense. We're not structure protection. I have no problem with the rural fire departments being there if there's no qualified tribal members that can do that. I'm not trained in house fires. I'm not going to go. But yeah, 24 hours after that, you bet. I would like to be there. It's my reservation. I'm a tribal member. And there's a lot of tribal members getting into fire now, and I think that's a good thing. Tribal members need to be able to work. If they want to work on their reservation, then it's the council's job, and I think you guys are starting to do that, provide them an opportunity to work. I think we can sit down with Ron and Tony and figure something out. And that's what I see is missing most of the time with these groups. Like the gentleman that did this little plan, it sounded like a really good plan. But I asked him, where's the layperson input? The people that live here? Where's their input? Who are you gonna hire to doze those lines in? Who are you gonna hire to fix the roads? That should automatically, in my opinion, say, do we have qualified tribal members? And if we do, let's smile and say, here's an opportunity. But I do think Forestry and Ron, they're doing a good job now. And I think Claremont needs a little bit of help. I go in there and she's so swamped, she stays there, she's got kids. But she's still at work. She doesn't do everything that I think she should do, but I will damn sure stand behind her. She's a good worker. So some of it is error on person. She just don't have time. You know, one thing that bothers me a little bit is when I don't get a resource order. I'm always thinking the worst, hoping the best. So when I don't get a resource order that tells me who's on the fire, I have no way to say, oh, 1 and 2 is white guys, 3 and 4 is Indians. So I would like to see a resource order, and that's part of Viper. You get a resource order with the tribe sometimes. So it'd just be nice, then, you know, avoid all appearance of evil. If you get a resource order, it shows you who they called. So thank you.
Wait.
I talked to Missoula Dispatch in there and they said all that the tribe has to do, like Ron or whoever, Devin, call into Missoula Dispatch and request all of the Indian preference people on the list. And that's what they told me, and they could get, you know, a resource order and get to the fire. And they said they can't do anything unless they request it. So, you know, like there, when the fire started, if they needed help, all they have to do is call Missoula Dispatch, tell them we'd like all the Indian preference people sent to the fire. And they have a copy of all of our Viper contract and all the, you know, Indian preference, all that is all on there. And Ron them have a copy of who's all on the list also.
They don't have the tribal preference list. Ms. Charlotte doesn't send Missoula Dispatch that list. What they have is just a generic list that signs up for Viper. What we do here locally is we apply whoever's on tribal preference to the list that is currently existing, and we identify who is in tribal preference. That's just not intuitive, and that's what I found out when Missoula started filling orders. They were going off the top of that Viper list. So I
the critical
recognize.
thing is them to contact Davin.
Right, they
And
have
he
to push.
uses our list.
Right, yeah, so that's what we did. That was the adjustment to the.
They got a list of tribal members. They may have a list of tribal members, but they don't have a list of Indian preference.
Right. Okay. Sounds like we got a recipe to fix everything.
Yeah, Missoula
Yeah.
Dispatch supplies orders to the bidder, all of us. And so that's where it's at. So for us, back to your point, it kicks back to Devin. Devin fills it, gives them the names and it goes forward. And that got adjusted.
And in the very beginning, when I got my Viper contract, I called Devin and told her what I had and what was available. And she said, well, we go off the Viper list. I said, well, I'm on the Viper list. Maybe something that we could do here to help everybody is maybe, you know, the Indian preference, put a list together of all the Indian preference tribal members that are available and ready for work. And then all Devin or whoever it'd have to do is call them or have the list through Indian preference and go off of that. You know, and that's what I'm trying to say too, is why can't we have an Indian preference list with them right away? And why do we have to go through Viper to work here on our own reservation?
So we got a unique opportunity and situation. agreement with the Viper list. No other place gets to apply an Indian preference to their Viper list. We do. That's why they don't have it. And we do have a list of Indian preference. We work with our Indian preference office. We verify that list. What we do is we take the Viper list every year. We look at it. We highlight which tribal members are Indian preference. And then after that, we highlight it, which ones are tribal members, not Indian preference. And we get to apply that list in that order, as opposed to how Viper is actually set up as best value. Now, the first 5 people may be best value. They may be less rate. They may be non-tribal. We're going to skip to number 6, which is Indian preference. And so technically, we have deviated from the Viper list and have an agreement to be able to do that, to apply our Indian preference to it. So we are putting our tribal members in our Indian preference list ahead of non-members. Now, in this case of this fire, again, 48-hour shift, easiest thing to do, Missoula Dispatch ordered. Stuff may have got missed, stuff may have got delayed, just because of fatigue and response. Now, the rules did stay there past 24 hours because there were structures and there needed to be structures. And when the team took it over, they didn't keep the structures, engines. What they did was gave them mutual aid responsibility once they hit that button for mutual aid, and they thought it was time to plug in to protect those houses. They made that call. They ran solo for that, again, for that first shift, until they extended past and then got paid. So they weren't ordered and weren't kept on the fire. They were doing their responsibility of what their district, of what they're supposed to do of house protection.
Thank you. Brand Junior.
Hey, guys. I wanted to publicly thank everyone too. Really. I usually don't say much in public, I guess, but I appreciate these guys a lot. And I think my father and Wade both spoke the words that this year has been better than it has in past. And I'd agree with that 100%. Totally. And I really appreciate all the effort and the work that everybody does to employ, to feed the people here, our families. And this year, like I said, it was better than any year that had been in the past. And for me, I don't know, I'm still a kid maybe in my own mind, but I've been doing this for over 20 years. And this has hands down been the best. And when there was only one thing, that there was a water tender that I got demobbed and they were from off the reservation, non-tribal, they stayed on. There was a few minor things like that happened. But like to say, it's a fire. So everybody's rushing and scrambling, like Ron says, to try to get everything done, to get people protected, homes protected, land protected. And it can become kind of complicated. And I'm very grateful that Tony and Ron are saying, we're going to put in a plan into effect in the document so we can just pass that at the beginning of every year, because that is what it is. That's what it's going to take. But I just, like I said, I wanted to publicly thank the council and these men sitting here and everyone else involved, because it's been the best year in my experience in the last 20 some years that I've ever had. So the positive of this, and like Wade said, and I know my dad believes, it's all about teamwork. We help each other. We keep moving forward, and we bring stability to an area that needs it very badly. And I agree with Wade, by empowering the people here, I think that's how we're going to help cure the problems that so many have. And thank you.
Thank you, Francis. Keep up the good work. All right, Wade, we have to move on here.
Yeah, no, I'll finish up here. I was just gonna say too, on the weather, like Ron and them are saying, they've been doing a good job, and the weather outlook here for the next week is, yesterday was the coolest day of the week. And the rest of the week and on into the next 14-day forecast is 100 degrees plus. We're gonna break all the records that they have set for temperatures in the next 5 days. And on the Moccasin Telegraph, what I hear is there's a lot of pissed off irrigators here on the res, and they are still a little pissed about the water compact and everything. And I've heard people, saying, oh, we ought to just burn them out. And like you say, this fire up here is man caused. Could be more. I think, all of our tribal preference engines should be ready and, on patrol or ready to go in case there are more fires. And like I said, the fire up there at Elmo is gonna be, like you said, it isn't gonna go out until it snows. So I have 2 engines available. They dispatched 5 more up there. I have 2 more that are available, and I think there's a few other ones. So if they need help, I'm available and I'm ready to help. And I'd just like to do the best that we can. And like I say, we're all on the same team. This is our reservation. I only want to work and help protect our reservation and protect our people.
Thank you, Wade. Appreciate it.
Well, I thank you, Tom, everybody, all the councilmen, ladies. I appreciate all your help. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Gentlemen, you better get up to Elmo.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks, Ron. We're gonna take a quick break. And
10:40,
huh?
10:40.
10:40. We'll reconvene at 10:40 because I got some cake that's looking at me. I'm gonna have to Okay, I guess we'll go into executive session.